Ready to speak on the Egypt situation. Let's listen in.
Beginning of a new chapter in the history of a great country and a longtime partner of the United States. And my administration has been in close contact with our Egyptian counterparts and a broad range of the Egyptian people, as well as others across the region and across the globe. And throughout this period, we've stood for a set of core principles. First, we oppose violence, and I want to commend the Egyptian military for the professionalism and patriotism that it has shown thus far in allowing peaceful protests while protecting the Egyptian people. We've seen tanks covered with banners and soldiers and protesters embracing in the streets. And going forward, I urge the military to continue its efforts to help ensure that this time of change is peaceful. Second, we stand for universal values, including the rights of the Egyptian people to freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, and the freedom to access information. Once more, we've seen the incredible potential for technology to empower citizens and the dignity of those who stand up for a better future. And going forward, the United States will continue to stand up for democracy and the universal rights that all human beings deserve in Egypt and around the world. Third, we have spoken out on behalf of the need for change. After his speech tonight, I spoke directly to President Mubarak. He recognizes that the status quo is not sustainable and that a change must take place. Indeed, all of us who are privileged to serve in positions of political power do so at the will of our people. Through thousands of years, Egypt has known many moments of transformation. The voices of the Egyptian people tell us that this is one of those moments. This is one of those times. Now, it is not the role of any other country to determine Egypt's leaders. Only the Egyptian people can do that. What is clear, and what I indicated tonight to President Mubarak, is my belief that an orderly transition must be meaningful, it must be peaceful, and it must begin now. Furthermore, the process must include a broad spectrum of Egyptian voices and opposition parties. It should lead to elections that are free and fair, and it should result in a government that's not only grounded in democratic principles, but is also responsive to the aspirations of the Egyptian people. And throughout this process, the United States will continue to extend the hand of partnership and friendship to Egypt, and we stand ready to provide any assistance that is necessary to help the Egyptian people as they manage the aftermath of these protests. Over the last few days, the passion and the dignity that has been demonstrated by the people of Egypt has been an inspiration to people around the world, including here in the United States, and to all those who believe in the inevitability of human freedom. To the people of Egypt, particularly the young people of Egypt, I want to be clear. We hear your voices. I have an unyielding belief that you will determine your own destiny and seize the promise of a better future for your children and your grandchildren. And I say that as someone who is committed to a partnership between the United States and Egypt. There will be difficult days ahead. Many questions about Egypt's future remain unanswered. But I am confident that the people of Egypt will find those answers. That truth can be seen in the sense of community in the streets. It can be seen in the mothers and fathers embracing soldiers. And it can be seen in the Egyptians who linked arms to protect the National Museum. A new generation protecting the treasures of antiquity. A human chain connecting a great and ancient civilization to the promise of a new day. Thank you very much.
Well, That was the U.S. President Barack Obama speaking about the unrest and uprising in Egypt, saying that the administration has been in contact with the people and government of Egypt. He said that he opposes violence and that Egypt's army especially must be commended for protecting the people and allowing people to protest peacefully, yet not mentioning at this point the violence that protesters have had to endure, and many of them, of course, have been killed as well. He said that this is a time of change in Egypt. He said that the United States stands with Egyptians for freedom of speech, information, etc. However, as we know, internet and phone lines have not yet completely opened up in that country. He said that the United States will continue to stand for democracy worldwide, as the U.S. regularly says. He said that there is a need for change, and that when he spoke to President Mubarak just a few minutes ago, Mr. Mubarak said that he understands that the status quo is not sustainable at this point, and Obama saying that all of us in leadership positions are leaders only at the behest of our people. Mubarak, though not realizing that yet, it can be argued. It is not the role of any other country to determine Egypt's leaders, according to Obama. He said an orderly transition, again, that term orderly transition, must be meaningful and peaceful and must include a broad spectrum of people. He said that a new government must be democratic and must answer people's problems. He said that the United States stands ready to provide any assistance to Egypt and its people. We have seen in past days that U.S. tear gas canisters made in USA have been found on the streets and have been used against protesters. And even there have been rumors that some tanks, which supposedly had the abbreviation or the initials of U.S. forces, were seen at Tahrir Square. That, of course, unconfirmed reports, but that may be the kind of assistance that Barack Obama is, in fact, realistically speaking about. He said that American people have been inspired by Egyptians, and that speaking directly to the Egyptian youth, he said that we hear your voices and that you will seize the promise of a better future for you and your future generations. He said that there will be difficult days ahead, a warning that Mubarak also put in place by initially saying that he would crack down for lack of better words. That is what Mubarak said. He said that Barack Obama said that future of Egypt, there are a lot of questions that remain unanswered for that. However, there can be seen a sense of community by mothers, children, fathers, people who are workers, laborers, all coming out together on the streets, united for this front. We'll obviously have to see how Barack Obama's speech will be received by the people in Egypt. I believe we may still have on the line Hassan Ghani, our correspondent in Cairo. My apologies, we do actually have Colin Campbell, our correspondent in Washington, D.C., joining us now. Colin, can you give us an idea of how people may react to this speech in the U.S.?
Well, several people who I spoke to today, in fact, about the U.S. response to what's happening in Egypt right now has been a little bit disenchanting. They're looking at President Obama walking a tightrope, basically, not committing either way. After his speech in Cairo, that monumental speech as part of his presidency, I think that quite a few Americans are looking for more to come from the Obama administration, to pick one side or the other. Most Americans feel that there should be change in Egypt, especially after 30 years of a Mubarak presidency. So I think they would like to hear a little bit stronger rhetoric coming from the White House saying that possibly Mubarak should step down. But of course the White House isn't going to do that. They've made ties with Mubarak. They have a history with Mubarak. So they're not going to come out and say this decidedly. However, they have said that there should be a peaceful transition, which would kind of allude that the White House would like to see a bigger change happening in Egypt. But it seems like from what some people have told me, that seems like more of a cowardly way of phrasing that they do endorse a change in Egypt.
Right, but Colin, it could be argued, according to an article I was reading right after Mubarak had ended his speech in the British press, that they were saying that Washington has actually forced Hosni Mubarak to even accept this step, that he would not run for re-election. Could it then not be argued that the U.S. has, to a certain extent, understood what Mubarak has maybe not understood, that his time is finally up?
I think that's what Secretary Clinton and President Obama have alluded to, that they do realize that a big change should be coming to Egypt. But I think, like what we talked about before, they're still waiting. Many Americans are still waiting for them to say that a little bit more explicitly. I think it is understood by the Obama administration. I think that they are kind of anxious to see who they will be dealing with in the upcoming months, whether it will be a weakened Mubarak, whether it will be even Mubarak at all. I mean, right now, yes, he says that he will not run for re-election. He'll be in power through September, but still, that could change. I mean, just like we've seen the changes within this past week with his administration. So I think that the Obama administration knows that a big change is coming to Egypt. They want change to come to Egypt, but they haven't said it as explicitly as some people would like them to say it.
Right. So, Colin, every U.S. official that has spoken so far, and every European official, in fact, has said that the United States, the EU, do not have a right to speak in the affairs of the Egyptian people. Yet, ironically, every time Mubarak speaks, Obama speaks a half hour or an hour later. Is that sort of rhetoric being accepted where you are in Washington as well by the people there? And is the government even making it hidden that it does in fact have an agenda here?
Well, I think it's known that America has a stake as to what's happening in Egypt, especially after the deals that they've made. You have Israel, which is also a player in this. The United States is looking to see how this will even affect.
It seems we may have lost our line with Colin Campbell, our correspondent who was joining us from Washington, D.C. We will, of course, continue. Well, let me just give you a bit of reaction in the worldwide press to Mr. Mubarak's speech. In the Israeli media, ynetnews.com, there was an op-ed which said that Omar Suleiman, who is the Egyptian president has currently appointed, his rise in Cairo would actually be good for Israel, and that would be welcomed in Israel. He said that the writer said that Suleiman is the mirror image of Mubarak when it comes to domestic and foreign relations. You must remember that Omar Suleiman is known as the father of rendition. He is known as somebody who supports torture. So is not known as a man who is necessarily very loved by the Egyptian people or, in fact, anybody worldwide. In this op-ed, it goes to say that the Israelis are opposed to the president as he is being portrayed as an honest man in the eyes of the people. The writer says this is an optimistic point, the appointment of Suleiman, that is, for Israel, and this will create welcomed continuity without toppling the entire regime. And the writer says, and I'm quoting now, at the end of the day, the system of government in Egypt will not be changing. It will remain an autocracy, but a softer, more flexible one. That may show you about which way Israel is leaning on this fact that it wants democracy versus it does not want democracy. Earlier, we had, of course, told you about the fact that Netanyahu's office clarified a statement he had made earlier, casting doubt on the need of democracy in Egypt, saying that no, Israel in fact does support democracy worldwide, especially in the Middle East. Mohammed al-Baradei, in an interview, called for Mr. Mubarak's immediate departure, as he has been from day one, and declared himself ready to serve if he is called in an interim capacity. He has held talks, as we've reported, with American and British ambassadors, and is understood to have offered proposals for an interim government to oversee a transition for democracy. Well, we're going to have our half-hour world news coming up in just about 2 minutes' time. Stay with Press TV.